Greetings, fellow gorehounds, and welcome back to a Blood Splattered vlog. I'm the Horror Guru.
And I'm Count Jackula.
And today we're talking about MadS from writer-director David Moreau, which is a French horror film that has a very particular gimmick. And that gimmick is the movie is done entirely in one single shot. But unlike a lot of movies that have that gimmick, this movie actually did it in one shot. There are no hidden cuts anywhere to be seen in this movie. In fact, I believe when I was reading an interview with the director, they shot the whole movie 5 times.
Yeah, so if you've seen like One Cut of the Dead, imagine that first half of One Cut of the Dead being an hour and a half.
Exactly. And that makes this movie a very impressive technical achievement. I don't want to get too much into what actually happens in the movie because it was kind of fun figuring out where the movie was going as it was happening. But what I can tell you is the initial premise of this movie is this one teenager named Romain is on the way back from visiting his drug dealer. And on the way back, he ends up running into this woman who appears to be crazy. And this ends up diverting the entire course of his night from where it was originally going. We'll talk more about how it diverts in the spoiler section. But before we get to the spoiler section, holy crap.
Yeah, it's a very impressive film.
Now, that's not to say the movie's seamless. There are times where you can tell when the camera pans away and starts focusing on different characters. They're like setting up the next bit that's about to happen.
There are some times that you can tell just because they had to have done this, where the camera will pan away from someone and then a stand-in in the exact same costume as the previous character jumps in so they can get them ready for the next effect shot.
Exactly. It's like if you want to do any sort of practical body effects, you got to apply those effects to the character. And if we were already following that character, we now got to look at someone else while those effects are applied to the previously established character.
And this movie goes throughout an entire city.
It does.
Like,
it does.
That's the thing that is the most fucking insane about it.
It gets so fucking elaborate, and what's really fun about watching the movie is, at least for me, I was watching it trying to figure out how each bit was done.
Yeah.
Like there's one scene where a character is being chased, and the character that's chasing them is on their feet, but the person being chased is inside a Vespa, so the character is supposed to be catching up to them, but they're obviously going pretty fast. So how did they achieve this effect of the character slowly catching up to them? And I'm like, oh, wait, hold on. So the character that's chasing will dip in between cars off screen.
So there are like 5 actresses that are all dressed the same way, ready to come out on cue.
Exactly, all dressed the same way, and because they're in the distance, like
can't really tell.
And I'm like, oh man, like that's the only way I could figure out they did that. They might have done a different trick that I didn't notice, but like either way, I had a blast trying to figure it out.
Yeah, because all you really have to do at that point is like have one person ADR all the yelling.
Exactly.
You know,
I'm like imagining like all the walkie-talkie conversations that are happening behind the scenes, because while they're shooting in one location, the next location has to be ready for when their time hits.
Dude, you know there's a crew at each location, but you still have to transfer your main actor.
Yeah, they still have to get there.
They have to have like plotted, okay, at this point they're going to be filming down this street. That means we go this way.
Yeah.
And get them there, and they better fucking be there.
We're going to have a stand-in for this character here so that when they disappear here, the actual actor is being driven to the other location so they could pop up over here.
Yeah.
And there's even one point involving a train, which was a small moment, but it was a moment that made me go, wait, hold on. How did they time the train to make that work?
Or did they just get lucky?
Was that just like the train happened to be going by in that one take?
Yeah.
If so, that actress is lucky to be alive.
Yes.
Because I'm thinking about, like, if you're going to have a train, you're going to do like a near miss where someone's almost hit by a train, you're going to have that train starting way down the track to make it look like it's going fast enough for the camera.
Yeah, and there's no way you're going to time that right.
Exactly.
You know, like, why? Ugh.
There's some practical body horror effects in this movie being applied to characters that we saw without the effects earlier.
Yeah.
Those effects have to be applied in real time while they're filming the movie.
You got that on in 10 minutes.
Yep.
And for 10 minutes, it looks pretty good.
Oh yeah, absolutely. What's also really impressive is the actors that you're following in this movie. The ones that you follow for a long period of time without any cuts. Yeah. And they have to keep going and they have to stay in the moment and they can't break character, right?
Yeah. In particular, there is one actress. We'll get into that in spoilers because by the time we get to her being in front of the camera, they pretty much told you the plot.
She is amazing.
Yes.
She's amazing.
She's great.
She steals the show and she kind of dominates the second act. There are 3 distinct acts in this movie that we'll talk about in the spoiler section because each one's a little different.
Yeah, this thing starts at dusk and goes into the night.
Yep.
And it feels like an entire night's worth of activity. But you're thinking about it, you're like, actually, this has only been 2 hours.
Yeah.
And we're watching it happen in real time.
It's 90 minutes, actually.
Yeah.
It's like 90 minutes, so they just timed it at the perfect time, which makes me wonder, when they shot the other, 4 takes of the movie, did they have to do it, each a day?
They would have had to have done it.
They couldn't do them in a row.
Day. Right, no, there's no way.
Especially given, there's explosions going off at certain points, so, they need to, restock on those each day when they filmed it. On the flip side, that means that a filming of the movie pretty much would take place in one day.
Yeah.
Because it's one 90-minute filming period.
Yeah, but I guarantee it was weeks of training.
Yeah, there had to have been months of setup and preparation and rehearsal, right?
Yeah.
Because everything had to be timed perfectly right. And if something wasn't timed perfectly right, the actors in the movie had to be good at stalling so that the thing could happen on time.
Exactly. Everyone had to have their timing, their improv, and their bullshit down just right.
Because there's only so much you can hide with sound design and special effects in post.
Yeah. Now there are a few shots where you can tell there's a bit of compositing.
Yes.
But those are not the money shots.
No. And there is a wild sound design to this that I think also helps the movie. Because even in the parts where you're going from one location to another and you're following the person in the car, the weird sound design happening makes it not boring.
Yes.
As well as the use of diegetic sound and music.
Yeah.
So going into a party, and again, this is a 90-minute movie. There's a point in which a character goes into a party in the middle of all this. And so you have the music in the party and all that stuff, as well as the sound design of all the people. It's nuts.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
Because when you think about it, when you're filming a party scene, you got to have it quiet enough to where you can actually get the main actors' voices.
Yeah.
So the people in the background can't be too loud, but you have to make it feel like a party, especially if it's going to be one take, right?
Yeah, so they have to be doing something.
Yeah. And some of it has to be ad-libbed because there's only so much you can script. Things will happen that they probably didn't anticipate.
Yeah.
A character might trip or something might happen, or, oh, hey, the explosion's not ready yet, so hold off at least another 5 seconds. Actor has to figure out what to do in those moments. They do a great job at that. You can tell at moments when the actors are trying to stall a little bit for time, but they never break character. They never lose it.
Nope.
You never see that moment where the actor accidentally does something and goes oh shit, you just broke the fourth wall there. It never really happens. So anyway, MadS is a fun technical experience that I highly recommend people check out. It doesn't break any new ground plot-wise. It's more about the execution of the plot.
Yeah, it's a very simple plot.
Exactly. And we'll talk about the plot in the spoiler section. But first, MadS is a Shudder original movie on top of being a French horror movie. So if you want to check it out, you're going to have to subscribe to Shudder and check it out there. And with that said, my fellow Gorehounds, let us move on to the spoilers so we can talk about what actually happens in the movie.
All right. It's basically a zombie virus outbreak. The Crazies.
The Crazies is the best comparison because they're not just turning into undead monsters, though there are points in which they exhibit supernatural strength and the ability to withstand bullets.
Yeah, they have superhuman abilities.
But more than that, they're actually going mad. Hence MadS, I'm assuming. Because I can't think of what else that title means.
Literally losing their minds.
Exactly. And the movie is divided into 3 distinct acts. The first act is following a character named Romain. He's kind of our introductory character. He's the one who's leaving his drug dealer and runs into the crazy girl who turns out to be infected and infects him. Then he goes to this party and infects all of his friends. 2 of those friends, 2 of his lovers, basically.
One of which he's sleeping with.
One of which he's cheating on the other with. They are the other 2 characters that we follow in this movie. One of them is Anais, who basically dominates the second act and is amazing.
Yeah.
She gives possession level performances in this.
Yeah.
as she
she goes
slowly
nuts.
loses her mind, just goes fucking nuts.
Yeah, and it's during her segment that we start to realize that they're not just going crazy, like this virus is actually giving them like extra human abilities.
Yeah, because she like gets shot, right?
Yeah.
And she's like thrown around and hit by cars and shit, and she's fine. She's also the one that almost gets hit by a train when she's escaping, because one of the cruxes of this movie is that the French military is trying to track down all the infected and putting them down before it can spread. Now, unfortunately, they fail, and this movie turns into a full-on zombie outbreak by the end of the movie. And then Anais runs into Julia, who is the other girl.
Yeah.
And Julia, she basically hunts down and stalks in the last act of this movie. From that point on, we're following Julia up until the end credits.
Yeah. 3 main characters.
Yep.
It does the psycho on you twice.
Romain does a really good job. The actor playing Romain does a really good job. The actress playing Anais takes it to the next level.
Oh, yeah.
And the actress playing Julia doesn't go to Anais's level, but that's okay because most of her segment is her being chased by Anais to begin with.
Yeah.
So, needless to say, the scene in which Julia's on the Vespa and Anais is chasing her down that parking lot, that's the scene where it's very obvious that they had like stand-ins for Anais because as the Vespa got further and further away, there's no way she could actually keep up with it.
Yeah. Because like as a zombie, they feel no pain or next to no pain, and they're inexhaustible.
Yes. And they're faster and they're stronger. So my assumption is the original Anais isn't anywhere in that chase scene. They dubbed her voice in afterwards.
Probably, yeah.
But the original Anais was being driven to the next location.
Get her over here!
Get her to the next location with the elevator and get her up there so that we can do these scenes.
Yeah, so we can do the scene where she jumps out and is like, ah!
Yeah, and the rest of them during that chase scene are just stand-ins dressed identical.
Yes, that had to be what they did.
But what I love about that is they had to have been very careful about what Anais did so that when the stand-ins are standing there running after them, you don't notice like a distinct difference in the blood or the wardrobe.
Right.
You're like, she has the same blood marks in the same spots, right?
Yep.
There's a moment in which Anais, after she gets shot, she like is like leaning up against this bar, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, there's got to be someone underneath that bar that's applying the blood, because once she steps away from the bar, all of a sudden she's got all this blood that wasn't there before.
Yeah, exactly.
So someone underneath the bar is like squirting blood on her fucking shirt.
And making sure that it doesn't like get up into the camera, get up where the camera sees it.
Now, to be clear, I didn't watch any making of. This is just me figuring out in my head how they could have done some of this stuff.
Yeah. There are a few times when I'm like, well, that could have been compositing, like the train. That could have been a composite.
That could have been. It looked real.
It looked really good. Yeah.
If it was compositing, then they fooled me.
Yeah.
So well done on that. On top of this, while people are being zombied out, their body is also changing to a more zombie-like change. So you have makeup being applied and like contacts applied to actors. Like a great moment where you could really tell that the camera's attention is being pulled away from an actor so they can apply makeup to them is at the party when Romain first starts having glowing eyes.
Yeah.
And it like pans away from him to go focus on the 2 girls in the bathroom for a moment. And then when it pans back to him, he's got the glowing eyes now.
Yeah. The tip off that person is infected.
Yes.
Is that their eyes become reflected.
100%. Because there's this interesting conceit in this movie where the zombies are like moths. They're attracted to light.
Just drawn to lights. They're just fascinated with lights.
And when they're not in the light, their eyes glow, which leads to some really interesting moments. The moment when they're like breaking down the doors to get the crazy girl that he left in his house.
Yeah.
And they're like using these flash bombs to like attract it so they can like grab it and throw it in the van.
Yeah, and at that point you don't know why the fuck they're doing it.
No, you're not sure exactly what's happening. Like, what's with the light? What's with this? It almost felt like an alien invasion was happening with the sound effects and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. You're like, are aliens about to land? I have no fucking clue, you know?
And because the characters are going insane, while we're following them as they go crazier and crazier, the sound design starts layering in all these weird noises and like previous conversations from earlier in the movie, their own psychosis, like projecting someone saying something.
Yeah. You start to hear what's going on in their head.
So it almost feels like you're listening to like some weird horror industrial track.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of cool because like you're going crazy with them.
Yes, 100%.
You know, you're being invited into their insanity. you know, as it's happening.
And as they become more paranoid, you start hearing more noises like sirens or like a helicopter flying overhead. But you don't necessarily see the helicopter, so it might just be in their head.
Yeah, you're trying to figure out, is that in their head or is there actually a helicopter somewhere?
And you're not sure, but that just adds to the paranoid atmosphere of the movie.
Yeah. By the end of the movie, you're like, oh yeah, there was totally a helicopter.
There was 100% helicopters because the military has been coming down and is looking for these people.
Yeah, and trying to like institute a quarantine, and like it's not going well.
No, they fail.
They pretty much fail.
That's basically the long and short of MadS.
Yeah.
I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. Again, it's a zombie outbreak movie, so it doesn't break ground in terms of its plot, but the actual execution of the technical aspects of this movie are so impressive. I was enthralled watching it happening.
Yeah.
But even with the technical aspects, if the three main leads weren't engaging as all hell, the movie would have fallen apart.
Oh yeah.
So the actor who played Romaine, the actress who played Anais, and the actress who played Julia, they drive this entire movie. Watching them slowly lose their minds and like become more paranoid and scared and run through these scenarios that get more and more elaborate, they do an amazing job.
Having to sustain that emotional state for like 30 minutes at a time.
Especially Anais.
Yeah.
The actress playing Anais just goes like, again, I made the comparison to the movie Possession. If you've seen that like clip of the girl going crazy in the subway in Possession, like that.
Yeah, she's doing that the whole time.
Yeah.
Almost the whole time.
She spends that entire second and third act that insane. Going that level.
Just very quickly like cranks up to 11.
And so with that said, my fellow Gorehounds, do you have any final thoughts?
No, this is a great movie and you should watch it immediately. Remember, it's on Shudder. It's called MadS.
Absolutely. And with that said, my fellow Gorehounds, where can they find you, Count Jackula?
Well, you can find me here on YouTube, where I stream every weekday starting at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. That's GMT -8. I hope I'll see you there. What about you, Matt?
Y'all know me. I'm the Horror Guru. You can find me at the Horror Guru on Twitter, Twitch, Facebook, Instagram, wherever. Just look up the Horror Guru or Blood Splattered Cinema and I'll be there. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and don't forget to ring that notification bell so you're notified of my videos immediately upon their upload. And if you'd like to help out either of us more directly, be sure to check out our Patreon pages. And remember, if you decide to go the Patreon route, even $1 a month can go a long way, but we will certainly accept more. And with that said, my fellow Gorehounds, if you made it this far, I want you to comment below, and be sure to comment below using the hashtag RunZombieRun. Use the hashtag RunZombieRun. That way I know, that way Jack knows, that you maybe went a little MadS. And with that said, my fellow Gorehounds, peace out, and we'll catch y'all later.